Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome along to Sportsbet TV with me, Paul Alster. And first and foremost, I want to wish you all a really Merry Christmas. I hope you have a terrific Christmas day. Enjoy your turkey and trimmings and the old Christmas pud. Watch out for the sixpence. You don't want to end up at the dentist. I'm sure a lot of you will already have taken a very close look at all the declarations for Boxing Day. And I'm happy to say I'm able to offer you 3 free selections as a Christmas Brucey bonus here at Sportsbet. If you're new to the service, then please press the subscribe button just below this screen. I'm always looking for horses at very good each way prices so that even if they place, you should at the very least get your money back. And over the seasons and the calendar years since I started out in 2020 with this service at YouTube during the dark and distant days of the pandemic, we've done really well. Always going to be ups and downs when you're tipping horses at decent prices. It's not like tipping them at evens and odds on and 6-4, but you do get some very exciting moments, and I'm hoping we'll have some for you on Boxing Day. Now, Saturday, I had a couple of selections for you. My goodness me, we did have a bit of a shout. I wonder how many of you were screaming at the telly as Hidden Valley Lake came with that tremendous surge late on in the Grade 1 Stayers event at Ascot. I thought he was going to get up for a moment, but in the end, I think he failed by a head, was it, or a neck, to catch Crambo, who was winning the race for the second year running. It was a terrific effort from Hidden Valley Lake, and that was a nice each way at the recommended 9-1. Unfortunately, the other one on Saturday at Haydock, Stratton Oakmont, he sank in the mud. I think they're still trying to fish him out. That was at Haydock. Just didn't run to expectations, and that basically, illustrates the swings and roundabouts, the ups and downs of the racing game. Now, over at Out in Front, my subscription service, we're going to have a really busy time of things over the Christmas period, starting off with 5 selections already posted for Boxing Day. And there'll be multiple selections every day all the way through until the new year, with a real bonanza of racing, as we know, in Britain and Ireland. So the very first of my 3 selections for Boxing Day is at Aintree. It's the 140. It's a 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. They're going good to soft in places, and there are 9 runners. Now, runners from 2 inform yards are sharing favouritism at the time of this recording on Christmas Eve at around 100-30 in the early betting for what is a really competitive little race. Nicky Richards' Florida Dream goes well here. He won the Grade 2 bumper at the Aintree Festival in 2023, and then exactly a year ago he ran 5th to the smart Django By here in the Grade 1 Form B Novices Hurdle. And following a last gasp success on his return this campaign at Hexham in October, he again ran well when he was 5th in the Hot Greatwood Handicap Hurdle at Cheltenham last month. So Florida Dreams, I think, should be very much on the premises. Now, Act of Authority for another informed trainer, Ollie Murphy, arrives here on a hat-trick following wins at both Sandown and Wetherby in the space of just 6 days last month. And he's actually only been raised a total of £8, which suggests to me that the handicapper wasn't completely knocked out by those wins, but is clearly in good form and will have his supporters in this better race. Now, in my view, the heavens need to open if One Eye on Vegas, who's trained by Stuart Edmonds, is going to win this, because this horse really revels in testing ground, as he demonstrated by a gutsy success in heavy ground at Leicester last time, for which he's been raised £5. Red Dirt Road for John Joe O'Neill could be the biggest danger to my selection. He shaped well on his first run back after a very long absence, but I just fear that dreaded bounce factor when horses who have their second race in a relatively short space of time after a long absence can often run poorly. And that's the only reason that I would oppose him. He was very much on my shortlist, Red Dirt Road. Patriotic for Evan Williams was a very promising 5th on his seasonal bout at Chepstow in October in a good 2 mile 3 furlong handicap hurdle, but then he really did blot his copybook last time when he unseated Isabel Williams soon after halfway in a Grade 2 staying handicap hurdle at Haydock. But Uncle Bert, trained by Nigel Twiston Davis, will appreciate the drop back to this trip, having appeared not to see out 3 miles at the November meeting, and I don't think he'll be too far away. My selection, though, well, on the first Saturday of this month, I recommended Bingu, who's trained by Jimmy Moffat, and ridden by Charlotte Jones. I recommended him at this track. That was for my subscribers, I think, at Out in Front. But the meeting was abandoned, as we all know, the early December meeting at Aintree. I don't think this is any tougher than the race that he was entered for that day, and this Lake District train gelding has a really good chance, in my view, of repeating his victory in this very race 12 months ago when he stayed on very strongly after the last to beat Ted Hastings by nearly 2 lengths. And he runs off exactly the same mark once again. He returned this season last month after 192 days off, and he was still in with a shout when he unseated his rider at the second last at Carlisle in the decent handicap won by Castle Russian. Now, although he won this race last year on his first start of the campaign, the Carlisle outing won't have done him any harm at all. His current odds at the time of this recording of 11 to 1 each way with Bet365 likely reflect the fact that Moffat hasn't had a winner for quite some time, but he hasn't had very many runners either. And I think that had he stood up at Carlisle, Bingu would have gone pretty close to getting the nod in what was a decent race. So I think he's going to go well here in what looks a good contest at 11 to 1 each way. Now, my second selection, well, I'm taking you to the big race of the Christmas period. It's the Kempton 230. It is the Grade 1 King George VI chase over 3 miles at Kempton. Good to soft ground, good in places. And this is one of the great races of the National Hunt season. This year, attracting 11 runners in what is an open-looking, but in my view, a slightly substandard renewal. My impression, I think, is backed up by the official ratings because let's just take the last 5 years, in which the highest rated runner in this race has been rated respectively 176, 170, 175, 176, and 177. This year, the highest rated runner in the field is Long Presse for Venetia Williams at just 167. So that suggests that this renewal is possibly between £5 and £10 below the usual standard for a King George. But nevertheless, we've still got some great horses in it and could be in for a tremendous contest. But what it means that we've got a lot of horses rated within a few pounds of each other who have a genuine chance of winning. Now, Long Presse, the top-rated horse, runs for the first time since finishing fourth in the Cheltenham Gold Cup in March, but has never been beaten on his seasonal reappearance since he joined Venetia Williams in January of 2021. He had run a mighty race, and he would surely have been second to Brave Man's Game when he unseated Charlie Deutsch at the last in the 2020 renewal of this race. There's every reason to believe he's going to go well, although he would appreciate, I think, softer ground than is currently forecast, so any rain will help Long Presse's cause. Now, 12 months ago, at this very meeting, the French star Il est Français, who's trained by Noel George and Amanda Zetterholm, bounced off the good ground to win the Grade 1 Cato Star Novice Chase in pretty spectacular fashion. He hasn't run well in 2 of his 3 outings since then, but he did win in heavy ground at Auteuil in France in September before pulling up there last month, where apparently he had a genuine excuse. The fact is, the return to this track and the decent ground could see him bounce right back to form, but he does have just a little bit to prove against better horses than he encountered in the novice chase on this card last year. Now, very surprisingly, neither Gordon Elliott nor Willie Mullins are represented in this race this year, but there is still a strong Irish challenge, and it's headed by Spillans Tower for JP McManus and trainer James Mangum. He's one of the best 3-mile novices chasers of last season, and he was a fine second on his only run this term when he just was run out of it, failing by half a length in the 2.5-mile John Durkan Memorial Chase at Punchestown a month ago. That run should have put him absolutely spot on for this, and he is feared if he copes with the better ground. Corbett's Cross for Emmett Mullins is also owned by JP McManus. He is a good horse, but he would surely want softer ground to be seen at his very best, and Emmett Mullins has been speaking in the Racing Post over the last 24 hours, suggesting that if it is good ground and no give at all, then he probably won't run Corbett's Cross anyway. The classy Envoy Allen for Henry de Bromhead beat last year's King George hero Hewick by half a length in brave fashion in the Ladbrokes Champion Chase at Down Royal last month. The decent ground will help his cause. He likes good ground, but he was beaten a long way on his only previous try here, and he may come up short again. Banbridge, another Irish raider for Joseph O'Brien, really smart horse at around 2.5 miles, but the jury is out on whether he will truly stay this trip in a strong run race. He unseated his rider at the last one, still holding every chance in the race won by Anergameni over just 2 miles at Cork 18 days ago. And just as an aside, you often hear people saying that it's an easy 3 miles at Kempton, not a stiff 3 miles like, let's say, Cheltenham, for example, or Sandown. But the fact is that because it's a flat track, they tend to go like the clappers all the way round, whereas on the stiffer tracks, they tend to ride just a little more conservatively. And that's why very often you see horses absolutely legless in the home straight in the King George, having gone an absolute full pelt gallop over 3 miles. So for me, doubtful stayers are not going to win the King George. You really do have to stay 3 miles and more if you're going to win. Well, one of the leading British hopes is undoubtedly Grey Dawning for Dan Skelton. He ran his heart out when he was a fine second to Royal Pagaille in the mudbath at Haydock last month in the Grade 1 Betfair chase over the extended 3 miles 1 furlong. He certainly stays. But he did have a really hard race that day. He was driven out all the way to the line in pursuit of Royal Pagaille. If he has recovered 100%, then he would be an absolute danger to all, because he goes well on this ground as well, and he's a really likeable horse, is Grey Dawning. He's a horse potentially that could go really well in the Gold Cup. My selection, though, well, 2 years ago, Brave Man's Game for Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden beat Royal Pagaille and Frodon in a memorable race for the King George VI chase. L'Empresse departed when he was held at the last. He was in second place. Brave Man's Game went on to finish second to Galopin de Champs in the Gold Cup that season. And then last term, he was caught close home in this race by Hewick in that memorably dramatic finish in which Shishkin unseated his rider when in front 2 out. Now, I tipped Hewick that day, so it was a wonderful result for my followers at big odds. But what tends to be forgotten is just how badly hampered Brave Man's Game was by Shishkin when he unseated rider. Brave Man's Game was almost brought to a standstill, and the fact that he managed to recover and after the last hit the front again, I think says a lot about the horse, particularly at the horse at this track. I believe he probably would have held on from Hewick had he not been so badly interfered with. So he could have been coming here on a hat-trick of King George wins, which is rarely done. And the 9-year-old only finished 5th in the Cheltenham Gold Cup last season. But after his summer break, he ran well, in my view, to be second to the reopposing, and the supplemented the real whacker for Patrick Neville, who's a good horse on his day. That was at Wetherby earlier last month. But the fact was that Brave Man's Game probably needed the run there in the Grade 2 Charlie Hall chase. And the testing ground was against him when he was only third behind Royal Pagaille and Grey Dawning in the Betfair chase last month. But unlike Grey Dawning, he wasn't murdered up the running. Not murdered, probably not the right word, but he wasn't fully driven out all the way to the line because it was clear he wasn't going to catch the front 2. So he might not have taken as much out of himself as Grey Dawning did. Now, back at his favourite track and back on ground that really does suit him, I think that Brave Man's Game, but at the time of this recording, is still offered at 16-1 each way with Ladbrokes. I think he can return to form with a bang for Paul Nicholls and for Harry Cobden. And Nicholls is going for what is a remarkable 14th win in the last 27 years in this race, and more than 50% win rate in this great race over the last 27 years. And that is a record that is hard really to comprehend. He really has dominated this race, Paul Nicholls, and he obviously feels that Brave Man's Game is still up to it. And so to my third selection for you, well, that is very soon after they'll have finished at Kempton. It's at Wetherby in the 2:45, the 2 mile 5 furlong handicap hurdle on good to soft ground, 9 runners. David Pipe sends American Sniper on the long journey from the southwest, and he'll be hoping that the top weight can bring home the bacon, having won well at Newbury on his penultimate start, prior to finishing a very respectable 6 of 16 at Cheltenham last time. Callum Pritchard claims £7, and that will definitely help the cause of American Sniper. The ex-Irish Grosjean, who's trained by fast rising star trainer James Owen, has the ability, but he isn't the most consistent of horses. He pulled up at Sandown earlier this month on his first run of the season, but Owen now applies a visor for the first time, which might focus his mind. Also pulled up last time was Bois Gilbert for Lucinda Russell. He had been well fancied for the race at Kelso, but stopped quickly and was tailed off when pulled up. He's better than that, and he made it much better this time after what connections will surely hope was only a blip. This trip, I think, will prove too far for Castel Gandolfo, Fergal O'Brien's runner, who seems to me to be best at around 2 miles. But Mark Walford's Williston and the Sue Smith and Joel Parkinson trained North Parade are not at all without a chance if things drop their way. But my selection, and I really do fancy this one to go very well, is Eire Street. That's Eire Street, Eire as in island. And this one is trained by Jackie Stephen, who only has a small string of horses, and he's going to be ridden by a good young conditional called Charlie Maggs, who's very good value for his £7 claim. And Eire Street, in my view, I think can take a big step forward from his seasonal return at Carlisle 2 months ago, where he shaped far, far better than his 10th of 11 finishing position indicates. Indeed, between the final 2 flights of that race at Carlisle, he looked a possible winner as he switched from behind horses towards the stand side to make his effort, but he clearly blew up and certainly needed the run, eventually fading under tender handling. Now, I'm hoping he'll show the benefit of that outing on Boxing Day. The 7-year-old improved nearly 20 pounds last season after he joined Jackie Stevens' yard, winning a 2-mile handicap hurdle at Carlisle and then a 2.5-mile handicap hurdle at Ayr, both on heavy ground. He was a close second of 16 at Kelso when he bid for his hat-trick on his final start of last season, which was on soft ground. Now, there's absolutely no doubt that if there's any rain around Wetherby between now and the race itself on Boxing Day, that is going to help Eire Street. But there's still going to be juice in the ground, and I still think that in a race that is eminently winnable, Eire Street is going to go really well, and he's generally on offer at 11-2 each way. And that to me looks to be pretty much, as they say, a bet to nothing. So those are my 3 here at Sportsbet for you, all free on this Sportsbet service. If you're interested in the 5 that I have out in front, you can check them out by signing up at the link in the description box below this screen. I'll be back to you on Friday with some more tips for Saturday. But I'm going to leave you now once again with very best wishes for a Merry Christmas and the best of luck, whatever you're backing on Boxing Day. Bye-bye for now. Take care.